Hello viewers, LMS118 and welcome to the fourth video in my GTA ramming series. I've already covered the sports class, the supercars class and the sports classics class, and as promised in the previous video, here is the muscle class. At time of recording during the after hours update, this is the second largest class in the game. I think so anyway. And there are 46 vehicles in the class, and as always in the background you are seeing a countdown from worst to last in terms of momentum, which is a calculation made by multiplying a vehicle's top speed value by its weight value. And the values that you're seeing on screen are those values of momentum in units of kilogram meters per second. As always, in order to obtain the values that we need, Bruffy1322 has tested the top speed values of all of these vehicles and displayed them in his testing spreadsheet, which is also where I found the weight values for these vehicles. I think they come from the handling files. And in the video description you will find links to the following. There's a link to Bruffy's YouTube channel if you want to see his own testing videos and other videos that he's made. There's also a link to Bruffy's website, and from there you can find a link to his testing spreadsheet. There's also a link down there to the GTA wiki, which is where all these images come from. There's also a link to the playlist for this video series, in case you haven't seen other classes of cars that I've done. There's a link to the spreadsheet of my own that contains all of the data that I have released for this series. Do note that I only have released data on the vehicle classes that I've already done videos on, so if you're wondering where other classes of vehicles are that I haven't already done videos on, then please just be patient, and I will update the spreadsheet as the video series progresses. There's also links to the individual music videos for the pieces of music that you're hearing in the background, which is just to drown out some of the white noise and the silence when I'm not speaking. So, with all that covered, there's muscle car class. As I mentioned at the end of the sports class, the sports classics class video that you may have seen, I said that that class was quite famous for having quite bad traction across the board, and that the muscle class was also quite well known for that. And we're going to see towards the end of the video whether that stays true or not with some gameplay. But right now we've just come into the top 10 with the Voodoo, and just like the sports classics class, we're going to see quite a lot of vehicles at the top that are not at the top because of their top speed, they're at the top because of their weight. And it's all these sort of vehicles that are in effect wrongly classed, but also not really, because there isn't a suitable class for all these vehicles. Really, there should be sort of a sedan classics class or a coupe classics class or something that all these vehicles could have been in. Although some of these could be in a lowriders class, to be honest, because they'd fit quite well in that. And that means that these vehicles, although they're not sort of well-performing vehicles in their class, they get high up in terms of momentum because they're heavy. And of course, heavy is why they're not good for performance. Getting it towards the top 5 now, we've got the Chino in 6th place. We've just seen that the two Voodoos, and then the Virgo Classic, and then the Virgo, and then we have the Chino, and now we've got the Chino Custom in 5th place. A lot of these custom variants, these lowriders, are actually heavier, and also slightly faster, so that they get a significant boost to their momentum here. And we've just surpassed the 100,000 kilogram meters per second barrier with the Chino Custom there. And then in 4th place, we've got the Virgo Classic Custom. Again, slightly heavier and slightly faster than the ordinary Virgo Classic that we saw earlier. It's almost a bit weird why they're a bit heavier, but I suppose with all the customization that they get, and the hydraulics especially, that's why they get such a high weight. And now we skip third place because we have a joint second position between the two moonbeams. They actually have the same weight and the same top speed, so they get the same momentum. And just to reiterate, in case you're wondering why we skip third place, why the Virgo Classic Custom is in fourth place and not third place, is simply because there are 3 vehicles better than it in the class rather than 2. And then in first place we have, of course, the Duke o' Death. Probably quite unsurprising that that gets so high up on the list, weighing just over twice as much as the 2 moonbeams. And then of course we have the good old graph comparing all these values together. You can see on the far left the Duke o' Death is way higher than everything else in the class, and the Hot Knife, they're all the way down in last place, in 46th place, is also in sort of a league of its own, because it is significantly slower than the Hustler in second to last place, and I think 300 kilograms lighter. So, sort of, you know, average response from most vehicles in the class, but then there's an extreme at either end, sort of similar to what we saw for the sports class, to be honest. So, now that we've covered all the theory, let's have a look at some gameplay. Just a little note for you here. I would have liked to show you the Duke of Death, which of course we saw was the top vehicle by far. But unfortunately I don't have a Duke of Death, so I can't, you know, test it fully upgraded. And at the time I was doing all this testing of vehicles in game, I didn't have a friend around at the time that I could borrow one from, so we'll just have to sort of, you know, take the word of the momentum list, if you like, to accept that the Duke of Death is the best in the class. Meanwhile, what you're seeing here is the Hustler on the left, which is the second bottom vehicle. Again, I don't have a Hot Knife either, so I can't test that. The Ruiner in the middle and the Gauntlet on the right. And as always, I'm showing this to see whether there's sort of any extra factor with the traction that can otherwise, you know, boost vehicles up or down sometimes on realistically how good they are at ramming. But I don't think that the muscle class really succumbs to that, really. I mean, the Hustler on the left does have especially bad traction, but it already gets bad momentum because it's not heavy or fast either, so the Hustler really struggles, even when you consider the traction really doesn't help. The Ruiner tends to sort of I mean, it did a full front flip there. That's amazing, really. And then the Gauntlet was kind of average, really. And now we've got the Dominator on the left and the Moonbeam, the ordinary one, on the right. The Dominator is kind of fine, really. It tends to get a bit more traction than other vehicles in the class, which obviously gives a nice boost to its effectiveness. But as you saw there, it still can spin out quite easily. You know, it's still a muscle class after all. Definitely not a class, as I said before, that is known for having good traction. The Moonbeam, I mean, well, that's a van, so this is wrongly classed anyway, but, you know, I have to kind of accept that from Rockstar these days. It does have quite a punch, and it doesn't spin out as much as the other cars that you've been seeing. But even still, that doesn't stop it from being particularly bad sometimes. And I wouldn't recommend ramming with any of these vehicles, really. The Duke of Death is probably quite good at it. I would really have liked to test that, but I can't. Another sort of weird ramming by the Moonbeam there, trying to do the flip that we saw from the Ruiner earlier. although we're going to see one now. Look, it's just, the GTA physics, they just don't really make sense when you compare to how they should really react in real life. So, you know, it's weird, and the muscle class is overall, unsurprisingly, not a very good class to ram things in. And conclusively, just don't bother, really. There are going to be some sort of better classes coming up soon, hopefully, and we're going to see some better performance from ramming things. We did see some of that with the top of the supercars class and the sports car class with some really heavy vehicles that also are quite fast, whereas the heavy vehicles in the sports classics class and the muscle class are the slow vehicles. So we haven't really seen the best of both worlds in the last couple of classes, and they haven't been helped by the lack of traction either. But still, hopefully, like me, you found this interesting information regardless. As always, feel free to subscribe if you aren't already, if you want to see more classes coming in the future. The sedans class will be the next one that I cover, so hopefully I'll see you there. And as always, viewers, good luck with whatever games you're playing. I'll see you next time.